A 35-year-old African leader had 88 days to change his continent's destiny. The CA Belgium and the United Nations made sure he never got day 89. This is Patrice Lumumba, the man who terrified the Western world so much they orchestrated one of the most brutal political assassinations in modern history. Declassified documents now reveal the shocking truth about how three major powers conspired to murder Africa's most promising leader, and why his death still haunts the continent today. What you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about African independence. The rise of a revolutionary June 30th, 1960. The world watched as the Democratic Republic of Congo gained independence from Belgium after 75 years of brutal colonial rule. Standing at the podium was Adel, charismatic man who would speak words that would seal his fate. Patrice Lumumba wasn't supposed to be there. Born into poverty in 1925, he worked his way up from postal clerk to beer salesman to political revolutionary. But on this day, he stood before King Baudouin of Belgium and delivered a speech that sent shockwaves through every Western capital. While the king spoke of Belgium's civilizing mission, Lumumba responded with brutal honesty about the torture, killings, and exploitation his people had endured. He spoke of Congolese who were shot for refusing to submit to a regime of injustice. The Belgian delegation was furious. The CIA was taking notes. Within weeks, Lumumba became the Congo's first prime minister. His vision was simple but revolutionary. True independence for Africa, with Congo's vast mineral wealth benefiting Congolese people, not foreign corporations. He wanted to unite Africa under Pan-African socialism and break free from Western economic control. There was just one problem. The Congo contained some of the world's most valuable resources. Uranium for nuclear weapons, diamonds, copper, gold. These weren't just rocks in the ground. They were the foundation of Western military and economic power. July 1960, just 11 days after independence, the Congo was in crisis. The mineral-rich Katanga province, backed by Belgian mining interests, declared independence. The Congolese army mutinied. Belgian paratroopers landed under the guise of protecting European civilians, but really to secure mining operations. Lumumba faced an impossible choice. His country was being torn apart by forces beyond his control. He appealed to the United Nations for help, but UN Secretary-General Dag Hammarskjöld refused to help remove Belgian forces or end Katanga's secession. Desperate and with his nation collapsing, Lumumba made the decision that would cost him his life. He turned to the Soviet Union for assistance. The moment Lumumba contacted Moscow, he signed his death warrant. In Washington, CIA Director Allen Dulles declared Lumumba a Castro or worse, and a threat to Western interests in Africa. President Eisenhower, in a National Security Council meeting, authorized what would become known as Operation Barracuda, the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. But this wasn't just an American operation. Belgium, terrified of losing access to Congo's uranium mines, actively participated in the plot. They had their own reasons for wanting Lumumba dead. He threatened to nationalize the mining industry and expose Belgium's colonial crimes. The UN, supposedly neutral, played perhaps the most crucial role. Under Hammarskjöld's leadership, UN forces systematically undermined Lumumba's government. They closed airports to prevent Soviet aid from reaching him, refused to help maintain order, and eventually provided the cover for his overthrow. CIA Station Chief Larry Devlin began recruiting assets within the Congolese government. Belgian intelligence officers supplied weapons and training. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. They would use Africans to kill an African, maintaining plausible deniability for the West. September 14, 1960. Colonel Joseph Mobutu, a man Lumumba had trusted and promoted, staged a coup with CIA backing. Mobutu, who had been on the CIA payroll for months, announced he was neutralizing all politicians and taking control of the government. Lumumba, now under house arrest, refused to flee. He believed in his cause and his people. For months, he remained in Kinshasa, protected by a handful of loyal Congolese troops and a single ring of UN peacekeepers who seemed more interested in keeping him contained than keeping him safe. But Lumumba's supporters were regrouping in the eastern city of Stanleyville. If he could reach them, he could mount a comeback. On November 27, 1960, he attempted to escape, traveling by car toward his stronghold. He almost made it. Mobutu's forces, tipped off by Belgian intelligence, captured him at a river crossing just 150 kilometers from safety. The images of his capture, Lumumba beaten, humiliated, his hands tied behind his back, were broadcast worldwide. January 17, 1961. This date would go down as one of the darkest in African history. Lumumba, along with two close allies, was flown to Elizabethville in the breakaway Katanga province. They were met by Belgian officers and Katangan officials who had been waiting for this moment. What happened next was barbaric beyond imagination. Lumumba was beaten, tortured, and shot. But the conspirators weren't finished. To ensure his body could never become a shrine for independence movements, they dissolved his remains in acid and scattered the fragments. Belgian Police Commissioner Gerard Sout would later admit to keeping Lumumba's teeth as souvenirs. The level of hatred and fear this one man inspired in the Western establishment was unprecedented. The official story was that Lumumba had been killed by hostile villagers while trying to escape. For decades, this lie was maintained by Belgium, the United States, and the United Nations. The murder of Lumumba had immediate and devastating consequences. The Congo descended into chaos, with various factions fighting for control. The CIA's chosen strongman, Mobutu, would eventually seize power and rule for 32 years as one of Africa's most brutal dictators. Under Mobutu's kleptocracy, the Congo, renamed Zaire, became a hollow state. Billions in mineral wealth flowed to Western corporations and Mobutu's personal accounts while the Congolese people suffered in poverty. Infrastructure crumbled. Education collapsed. Healthcare disappeared. The ripple effects spread across Africa. Other independence leaders got the message, challenged Western economic interests, and faced Lumumba's fate. The assassination effectively ended the radical phase of African independence, ensuring that most countries would remain economically subordinate to their former colonizers. For 40 years, the truth remained hidden. Then, in 2001, a Belgian parliamentary commission confirmed what many had suspected. Belgium had been morally responsible for Lumumba's death. CIA documents released through Freedom of Information Act requests revealed the agency's assassination plots, but the most damning evidence came from the UN's own archives. Internal documents showed that Hammarskjöld and other UN officials knew about the assassination plot and did nothing to stop it. Some evidence suggests they actively facilitated it. Lumumba's death didn't just kill a man, it killed a dream. His vision of a united, independent Africa, free from Western economic domination, died with him in that Katangan jail. Consider what might have been. The Congo contains an estimated $24 trillion worth of mineral resources. If those resources had been developed for the benefit of Congolese people, as Lumumba envisioned, the Congo could have become Africa's economic powerhouse. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo remains one of the world's poorest countries despite its mineral wealth. Children work in cobalt mines so Americans can have smartphones. Congolese soldiers fight wars funded by mineral exports while their families starve. This is Lumumba's legacy, not just what he achieved, but what his death prevented. Every African leader who has struggled with poverty, corruption, and Western interference can trace their challenges back to that moment in 1961 when three of the world's most powerful institutions decided that African independence was a threat to be eliminated. The assassination of Patrice Lumumba was more than a political murder. It was the West's declaration that African independence would be permitted only on Western terms. The CIA, Belgium, and the UN worked together to destroy a man whose only crime was believing his people deserve control over their own resources. Today, as Africa continues to struggle with the legacy of this betrayal, Lumumba's words ring prophetic. History will one day have its say, but it will not be the history that Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations will teach. Africa will write its own history, and it will be, to the north and to the south of the Sahara, a history of glory and dignity. The documents are now declassified. The truth is undeniable. The question is, will we learn from it?